Imagine this. You're starting your career, maybe thinking about the future. In one country, you could lose your job with just, say, 2 weeks' notice. But then in another place, you might be welcoming a baby with 18 months of paid leave. How can these realities be so different? Today, we're doing a deep dive into two really distinct ways countries handle their labor markets. We're looking at sources that show these fascinating, sometimes really stark, trade-offs. Trade-offs that, directly shape people's lives and the whole economy. Our mission here is to explore how two advanced countries, Norway and Cydonia, manage this tricky balance between job flexibility and job protection. We'll dig into their specific policies, the arguments for and against each system, and, importantly, what it all means for employers and employees on the ground. It's kind of a clash of economic ideas. And we want to give you the shortcut to understanding what's really at stake.
Yeah, and what's really intriguing here is we're not just looking at dry policy papers. We're looking at how actual governments, businesses, and individuals navigate this stuff, this whole landscape of economic needs versus human security. We'll pull out the key nuggets from the sources. The goal is to help you understand the bigger picture, the different ways societies think about this. This deep dive should give you a really solid grasp on something that, honestly, affects global economics and, maybe more personally, your own feeling of security at work.
Okay, so let's start with this idea of flexible working. We hear that term all the time, right? Sometimes it sounds great, sometimes a bit worrying. What does it actually mean in practice? How does it play out in a country like Norway, based on what our sources tell us?
Right. Well, the sources point to several specific things Norwegian organizations are doing to get more flexible. It's not just like outsourcing jobs somewhere else. It's about how the workforce itself operates. So, for instance, they use a lot of temporary workers, people hired for short stints, maybe directly, maybe through an agency, when there's a specific need. It lets businesses ramp up or down really fast.
Okay, so temporary contracts. What else?
Then you've got part-time workers, people working fewer hours than a standard week. Again, more adaptability for employers dealing with, say, fluctuating demand. And there's also job sharing, which is interesting. That's where two people basically split one full-time job, each working part-time.
Yeah.
It's all geared towards making the workforce incredibly agile, really dynamic.
That gives a clear picture of the business side, flexibility, agility. We mentioned the government in Norway actually encourages this. Our sources say they've really leaned into this, legally speaking. And here's where it gets, pretty striking. Letting people go. Just 2 weeks' notice. Is that right?
That's right. 2 weeks. It's a core part of their model. The Norwegian government has actively shaped the laws to make it easier to hire, yes, but also, crucially, easier to let people go. And the details really stand out compared to a lot of other places. Beyond that very short notice period, the redundancy payments are also relatively small. The standard is typically 1 week's salary for every year you've worked there.
That's way per year. Wow.
And on top of that, the government has also reduced unemployment benefits. The financial safety net for people who lose their jobs isn't as generous as it once was, or as it is in some other countries. It creates a very clear signal, encouraging businesses to adjust quickly and maybe encouraging workers to find new jobs faster. It's a strong commitment to market efficiency.
So the goal seems clear. Create a dynamic job market, encourage businesses to hire because it's less risky. But for the person working there, that kind of speed, that low level of payout, it must create some anxiety, right? What do the critics say, according to the sources?
Oh, absolutely. The government argues quite strongly that this flexibility fuels job creation. The logic is, if businesses can adapt easily, they're more likely to take risks, grow, and hire more people. It's seen as a driver of economic dynamism. But the critics, they argue this leads straight to job insecurity, a big way. They say it just makes it too easy for companies to dismiss people, causing real stress and anxiety for workers and their families.
That makes sense. The feeling that your job isn't stable.
Exactly. But, it's interesting. While that job insecurity is the main critique, some sources hint at another side to it. Could this constant need to adapt actually push people towards, say, lifelong learning, or maybe even starting their own businesses? If you know a job might not last forever, maybe you're more motivated to keep your skills sharp or become more self-reliant. It's a different kind of dynamism, maybe more individualistic.
So a potential upside to the uncertainty, fostering adaptability in individuals.
Potentially. It raises that big question, doesn't it? How much security should individuals have versus how much dynamism does the overall economy need? It's a fundamental balancing act.
Okay, that's a really interesting perspective on the Norwegian model. Now, let's shift gears completely. Let's talk about Cydonia, another advanced industrialized nation, but our sources say they have a totally different philosophy. They really emphasize job protection. What does that look like in their system? How does it compare?
It's almost the mirror image, really. In Sudonia, if a company is struggling and thinking about layoffs, they can't just do it quickly. They have to go through a long period of consultation first. We're talking a potentially drawn-out process involving discussions with employee representatives. The idea is to explore alternatives, give everyone time. It's a huge contrast to Norway's 2 weeks.
A long consultation period. And what happens if, after all that, redundancies still happen?
Well, then the employees receive generous redundancy payments, much more substantial than the Norwegian model.
Hmm.
And after that, they're eligible for generous unemployment benefits, too, providing a much thicker cushion while they look for new work.
So, protection during job loss. What about other benefits?
Oh, yeah, the protection extends much further. Other payments are also very generous, like sick pay if you're ill. The support is often substantial and can last a long time. But the thing that really jumps out, the one that often makes people pause, is the parental leave. In Sudonia, mothers get 18-month paid maternity leave.
18 months paid.
18 months paid. And fathers aren't left out. They get 6 months paternity leave.
Wow.
Think about that. For new parents, that's...
Well, it's a completely different world compared to many places. Almost 2 years of paid leave combined. It shows a massive commitment to supporting families, allowing that bonding time, and expecting a different kind of work-life balance. It shapes the whole social fabric. 18 months paid maternity leave. 6 months paternity. That is truly remarkable. But thinking like a business owner, especially a small one, that must be incredibly difficult to manage. How do companies handle that? And surely there are costs. What do the sources say about the business perspective or criticisms?
You've hit the nail on the head. It absolutely comes with a cost. The sources are very clear on this. The social charges are very high. These are mandatory contributions paid by both employers and employees to the government. They fund this whole comprehensive system, the generous unemployment benefits, the sick pay, pensions, healthcare, and of course that extensive parental leave.
So high contributions from everyone.
It's very high. It's a significant financial burden, no doubt about it. It's essentially a collective agreement to pool resources for widespread security. But the government and the trade unions, they defend this system fiercely. Their argument is basically, people need this level of protection. It's a core societal value, part of the social contract. They believe the security and stability it provides are worth the cost. And interestingly, some argue there might be a hidden benefit for businesses too. If it's hard and expensive to let people go, maybe companies invest more in training their existing staff, foster more loyalty, potentially get higher productivity in the long run because workers feel secure and valued. It's a different kind of investment strategy.
Okay, so a strong belief in the social safety net potentially leading to more investment in employees. But the critics must have a field day with the potential economic downsides, right?
Yeah.
High costs, inflexibility. What are the main arguments against this Udonian model, according to our sources?
Yes, the criticisms are significant. The main one is that all this protection creates a rigid labor market. Too rigid, they argue. Companies become very hesitant to hire new people. Why? Because they know if things turn sour, it will be incredibly difficult, time-consuming, and expensive to adjust their workforce.
So it discourages hiring.
That's the core argument. This inflexibility discourages job creation, and the long-term consequence, critics claim, is actually higher unemployment than you might see in more flexible economies and slower economic growth overall. There's also a real concern highlighted in the sources. Companies facing these high costs and inflexibility might just decide to look elsewhere. They might move production or set up new operations abroad where labor is cheaper and regulations are looser. This could lead to jobs leaving Sudonia altogether.
Offshoring, basically, a major concern.
Exactly. It puts Sudonia in that classic bind.
Yeah.
How do you balance the cost of providing really comprehensive social welfare for your citizens against the need to stay economically competitive in a global market? It's a tough calculation.
It really is. So we've walked through these two very different systems. Norway, flexible, dynamic, maybe a bit precarious for workers. Sudonia, protective, stable, but perhaps rigid and costly. Beyond just the policies themselves, do the sources give us any hints about why these countries ended up on such different paths? Is it just economics, or is there something deeper, maybe cultural?
That's a great question because it gets to the heart of it. It's not just about spreadsheets and labor laws. What emerges from the sources is that these models really reflect fundamentally different ideas about how an economy should work and what society owes its members. Norway's approach seems to align more with, let's say, A neoclassical view, prioritizing market efficiency, letting businesses adapt quickly, believing that this dynamism ultimately benefits everyone, even if it means less individual security moment to moment.
Okay, the market-driven approach.
Right. Whereas Pseudonia, well, it feels much more rooted in a social democratic tradition. There's a strong emphasis on collective well-being, on solidarity, a core belief that the state and employers have a deep responsibility to protect people from the harsh edges of the market. Their thinking might be that the security actually builds a different kind of resilience, maybe a more stable society, a more loyal workforce, less inequality.
So different core values driving the economic structure.
Exactly. You can probably trace it back to historical factors, too. The strength of their labor unions, political histories, cultural attitudes towards risk and community versus individualism. These choices are deeply embedded in their national identities.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just policy A versus policy B. It's about what a country fundamentally believes is important. And as we've seen, neither approach is perfect. Both have upsides, both face serious criticism, both have unintended consequences. What this deep dive really highlights is that finding the right balance isn't just some technical economic problem to be solved. It's a constant negotiation reflecting a nation's soul, almost.
Yeah.
And that balance probably keeps shifting, right?
Absolutely. It's never static. You have these two distinct philosophies constantly interacting with global pressures, technological changes, demographic shifts. One philosophy values market responsiveness and efficiency above almost all else. The other prioritizes social cohesion and security, even if it means sacrificing some efficiency. Both camps believe their way leads to a better society, just through very different means. And both face constant challenges and criticisms about the trade-offs they've chosen. The real challenge for any country is figuring out how to tune its system to achieve its goals, prosperity, well-being, while staying true to, or maybe reevaluating, those underlying values. No easy answers at all.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. From Norway's 2-week notices and minimal payouts to Pseudonia's 18 months of maternity leave and sky-high social charges, it really throws into sharp relief how differently nations can tackle these fundamental questions about work, security, and the economy.
It does. And what's striking is how both sides can make a compelling case. You can see the logic behind wanting maximum flexibility, and you can absolutely see the appeal of deep security. But the sources make it clear. You can't easily have both extremes. There are always trade-offs. Difficult, conscious choices have to be made.
Which brings us to a final thought for you listening right now. Considering everything we've discussed, this fundamental tension between flexibility and protection, how do you think a country's specific approach really shapes the day-to-day lives, the career opportunities, maybe even the anxieties and hopes of the people living there? And maybe think about it personally. Which set of values, which underlying philosophy about work and security resonates more with you? Something to mull over.